Some secrets don't destroy a perfect night. They just reveal it was never perfect to begin with. Ethan Cole thought he'd found something simple. A beautiful woman, an easy connection, one night away from the weight of single fatherhood. But when Victoria Hale looked across that candlelit table and said, "There's something you need to know. I have a 6-year-old son," everything shattered. Not the night, not the attraction, but the illusion that love could ever be uncomplicated again. This is the story of what happened next. Stay until the end, hit that like button, and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. The rain started just after 7. Not the angry kind that hammers against windows and floods gutters, but the soft, persistent type that turns city lights into watercolor smears and makes everything feel distant, like the world has pulled a blanket over itself. Ethan Cole stood outside Riverside Bistro, hands shoved deep in his jacket pockets, watching droplets slide down the restaurant's front window. He was early. He was always early. It was a habit born from years of coordinating pickup times and bedtime schedules, of being the only parent who showed up to school events, of learning that being late meant letting someone down. Tonight, though, being early meant standing in the rain like an idiot, second-guessing everything. He should have just stayed home. The babysitter, Mrs. Chen from 2 floors down, had given him that knowing smile when he'd asked if she could watch Maya for the evening. "You look nervous," she'd said, adjusting her glasses. "That's good. Means it matters." Did it matter? Ethan wasn't sure anymore. He'd met Victoria Hale exactly once before, 3 weeks ago at a charity auction his firm had sponsored. He'd been there because his boss insisted, standing awkwardly by the bar in a suit he'd borrowed from his brother, trying not to look like someone who'd stumbled into the wrong tax bracket. She'd appeared beside him, without warning, ordering a gin and tonic with the kind of easy confidence that suggested she belonged everywhere. Dark hair pulled back, understated jewelry, eyes that seemed to catalog everything without judgment. "First time?" she'd asked. "That obvious? You're the only person here who looks like they'd rather be anywhere else." He'd laughed despite himself. Guilty. "My boss thinks networking is good for the soul." Is it? Mostly it's good for standing around feeling underdressed. She'd smiled then. A real smile, not the polite kind people wore at events like that. Victoria. Ethan. They'd talked for 20 minutes, maybe 30. He'd lost track. She didn't ask what he did for a living or drop names the way everyone else seemed compelled to do. Instead, they'd talked about the terrible appetizers, about the silent auction items nobody actually wanted, about the strangeness of spending thousands of dollars on dinner when the food was always mediocre. At the end of the night, she'd given him her number, handwritten on the back of a business card, which felt simultaneously old-fashioned and impossibly elegant. He'd waited 4 days to text her, partly because he didn't want to seem desperate, mostly because he wasn't sure what he was doing. Dating felt like a language he'd forgotten how to speak. His last relationship had ended 3 years ago, and that had been more of a slow dissolution than an actual breakup. 2 people who'd realized they were better at coexisting than actually connecting. Since then, there'd been Maya. Just Maya. His daughter, his world, his reason for getting up at 6 in the morning and collapsing into bed at 10 at night. She was 7 years old, brilliant and stubborn, and completely unaware of how much she'd reorganized his entire existence. Dating didn't fit anywhere in that equation. But Victoria had responded to his text within an hour, suggested dinner, picked the place, made it easy. So here he was, standing in the rain, wondering if he was about to make a terrible mistake. The door opened, releasing a warm wash of conversation and clinking silverware. A couple emerged, laughing about something, and Ethan caught a glimpse of the restaurant's interior. Exposed brick, soft lighting, tables packed close enough to feel intimate without being cramped. He checked his phone. 7:58. 2 more minutes. He thought about Maya, probably curled up on Mrs. Chen's couch right now, half watching some animated movie while pretending she wasn't tired. She'd asked him earlier where he was going, and he'd deflected with something vague about a work dinner. Not exactly a lie, but not the truth either. The truth was complicated. The truth was he didn't know how to explain to his 7-year-old daughter that he was going on a date without making it seem like something it wasn't, or maybe couldn't be. His phone buzzed. Victoria. Running 2 minutes late. Traffic's a nightmare. Don't leave. He smiled despite the rain soaking through his jacket. Ethan. I'll be the guy standing outside getting drenched. Victoria. Very romantic. I'm impressed. 3 minutes later, a black car pulled up to the curb. Not a taxi or a rideshare, but something sleeker with tinted windows and the kind of quiet engine that suggested money. The back door opened, and Victoria stepped out, immediately popping open an umbrella. She wore a charcoal dress that managed to be both simple and devastating, paired with a coat that probably cost more than Ethan's monthly rent. But it was the way she moved, quick, efficient, like someone used to navigating the world on her own terms, that struck him. You actually waited in the rain, she said, closing the distance between them. Seemed dramatic. It's working. She tilted the umbrella to cover both of them. Ready? Starving. Inside, the restaurant was everything the window had promised. Warm, low-lit, humming with the kind of energy that came from good food and better wine. The hostess greeted Victoria by name, of course she did, and led them to a table by the window, overlooking the rain-dark river. Ethan slid into the booth, suddenly hyper-aware of everything. The way Victoria hung her coat with practiced ease, the way she scanned the menu without really looking at it, the way she caught the waiter's attention with just a glance. Wine? She asked. Sure. She ordered a bottle of something French that Ethan had never heard of, then leaned back, studying him with that same cataloging look from the auction. You look nervous. Do I? You keep adjusting your collar. He stopped mid-adjustment. Habit. It's fine. Nerves are honest. She paused. How's your week been? Chaotic? Yours? The same. I spent 3 days in board meetings arguing about quarterly projections like it was a matter of life and death. Was it? To them, maybe. To me, it's just numbers. She shrugged. What do you do when you're not at charity auctions looking miserable? I'm a project manager. Construction. Mostly commercial buildings, some residential. It's less glamorous than it sounds. Does it sound glamorous? Not really. She laughed. The sound cut through the restaurant's ambient noise, genuine and unguarded. I like that you don't oversell things. Years of practice. The wine arrived. The waiter poured 2 glasses with the kind of reverence reserved for bottles that cost more than Ethan's car payment. Victoria raised hers. To honesty, she said. To honesty. They drank. The wine was good. Better than good, probably, though Ethan's palate wasn't refined enough to catalog why. It was smooth and complex and made him feel momentarily like someone who belonged in places like this. So, Victoria said, setting her glass down, tell me something real. Real? Everyone at these things, charity events, business dinners, wherever, they tell you the story they want you to hear. I want the version you don't usually share. Ethan considered this. He could deflect, keep things surface level, maintain the careful distance he'd built around himself. But something about the way she asked, direct, no pretense, made him want to answer honestly. I have a daughter, he said. Maya, she's 7. Victoria's expression didn't change, but something shifted in her eyes. And her mother? Not in the picture, hasn't been for a while. By choice? Hers mostly, it's complicated. He paused. Actually, it's not that complicated. She wanted a life that didn't include being a parent. I couldn't imagine one that didn't. Victoria nodded slowly. That must have been hard. It was, still is sometimes, but Maya's the best thing that ever happened to me, so I can't regret how we got here. How old was she when her mother left? 2. Jesus. The word landed heavily between them, not as judgment, just as recognition of how brutal that timeline was. I don't usually lead with that information, Ethan admitted. Tends to complicate first dates. Is that what this is? A first date? Isn't it? Victoria smiled. I suppose it is. She took another sip of wine. For what it's worth, I don't think it's complicated. I think it's real. And real is better than easy. The food arrived in waves, small plates meant for sharing, each one more carefully constructed than the last. They ate slowly, conversation drifting between topics. Her work, his projects, the strangeness of navigating adult life when everyone else seemed to have it figured out. Do you ever feel like you're faking it? Victoria asked suddenly. Faking what? All of it. Confidence, control. Like everyone else got a manual, you didn't. Ethan laughed. Every single day. Me too. She looked out the window at the rain. People see the business, the success, and they assume I've got everything handled. But most days, I'm just trying not to let anything important fall apart. What counts as important? She hesitated. It was the first time all evening she'd seemed uncertain. Family, the few relationships that actually matter. Not the quarterly projections? Definitely not the quarterly projections. They finished the bottle of wine, ordered dessert. The conversation never lagged, never felt forced. Ethan couldn't remember the last time talking to someone had felt this effortless. It was close to 11 when Victoria glanced at her phone and frowned. I should probably head out, she said, though she didn't move to leave. Busy day tomorrow? Something like that. Ethan signaled for the check. When it arrived, Victoria reached for it automatically, but he was faster. I've got it, he said. You don't have to. I know. She studied him for a moment, then nodded. Thank you. Outside, the rain had stopped, leaving the street slick and reflective. The same black car from earlier was waiting at the curb. Can I drop you somewhere? Victoria asked. I'm only a few blocks away. I'll walk. You sure? Yeah. They stood there on the sidewalk, neither quite ready to end the evening. Ethan shoved his hands back in his pockets, suddenly unsure what to do with them. This was good, Victoria said. It was. I'd like to do it again. Me too. She stepped closer, close enough that he could smell her perfume, something subtle and expensive. For a moment, he thought she might kiss him. Instead, she touched his arm lightly. Ethan? Yeah? There's something I need to tell you. The shift in her tone was immediate. Whatever ease had existed between them all evening tightened into something more serious. Okay, he said carefully. Victoria took a breath, and for the first time since he'd met her, she looked genuinely nervous. I have a son, she said. Lucas, he's 6. The words hung in the wet air between them. Ethan's mind went blank, then immediately too full. A son, 6 years old. The math assembled itself automatically. She'd have been 24 when he was born, young, but not impossibly so. Which meant there was a father somewhere, or had been, which meant complications he hadn't anticipated. Oh, he said, because it was the only word that would come out. His father's not involved, Victoria continued quickly, as if she'd practiced this speech. Never has been, really. It's just me and Lucas. Has been since the beginning. Just you, Ethan repeated. Just me. He should say something understanding, something that showed he wasn't fazed by this information. But his thoughts were moving too fast, crashing into each other. She had a kid. Of course she had a kid. Why wouldn't she have a kid? But she'd waited until now to mention it, which meant, what? That it was a test? That she wanted to see if he was worth the complication before bringing it up? I should have told you sooner, Victoria said, and now there was an edge of apology in her voice. Before tonight, it's just people react strangely when they find out. Men, especially. They either run immediately or they pretend it's fine when it's clearly not. I'm not running, Ethan said automatically. But I need a minute to process this. She nodded. That's fair. The car's engine hummed quietly. Somewhere down the street, a siren wailed briefly before fading. Ethan's phone buzzed in his pocket. Probably Mrs. Chen checking in, but he ignored it. Does this change things? Victoria asked quietly. I don't know, he said honestly. Maybe. I don't know yet. That's honest, at least. You asked for honest. She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. I did. Ethan felt the evening collapsing, the careful connection they'd built suddenly weighed down by reality. He wanted to say the right thing, to be the kind of person who could handle this revelation without flinching. But he'd spent too many years being careful, protecting his own carefully constructed life, to pretend this didn't matter. Can I ask you something? He said. Anything. Why did you wait until now to tell me? Victoria looked away toward the river. because I wanted one night where I wasn't someone's mother first, where I could just be Victoria, having dinner with someone interesting, without all the weight that comes with the rest of it. And now? Now you know. She met his eyes again. And now you get to decide if that's something you can handle. The directness of it, the challenge implicit in her words, made something shift in Ethan's chest. She wasn't apologizing. She wasn't making excuses. She was just stating facts and waiting to see what he'd do with them. I have to think about Maya, he said, about what bringing someone new into her life would mean, what bringing someone with their own kid into her life would mean. I understand. Do you? Yes, because I think about the same thing with Lucas. She paused. I'm not looking for someone to be his father, Ethan. He has me. But I'm also not looking for something casual that goes nowhere. I don't have time for that. What are you looking for? I don't know yet. Something real, maybe. Something that doesn't fall apart the first time things get complicated. Things are already complicated. They always are. The question is whether the complicated parts are worth it. Ethan's phone buzzed again. This time, he pulled it out. A text from Mrs. Chen. Maya's asleep. No rush. He put the phone away. I should go. Yeah, you should. Neither of them moved. Victoria, you don't have to say anything right now, she interrupted. Take your time. Think about it. If it's too much, I'll understand. And if it's not, then call me. She moved toward the car, then hesitated, turned back. For what it's worth, she said, tonight was the best evening I've had in years. Before I told you, I just wanted you to know that. Then she was in the car, and the door was closing, and Ethan was standing alone on the wet sidewalk watching taillights disappear into the city. He started walking. His apartment was 14 blocks away, but he needed the distance to think. A son, 6 years old. Jesus. He thought about Maya, about the careful world he'd built around her. Simple, stable, predictable. No surprises, no variables he couldn't control. It had taken years to establish that equilibrium, to reach a point where single parenthood felt less like drowning and more like treading water. And now this. The rain started again, lighter this time. Ethan kept walking. His phone rang. Not a text this time, but an actual call. He pulled it out, expecting Mrs. Chen. It was his brother, David. Yeah? Ethan answered. How'd it go? How did you know I was... Mrs. Chen texted me, said you looked nervous when you left. So? How was it? Ethan stopped walking. He was standing in front of a closed bookstore, its window display featuring romance novels with impossibly attractive people on the covers. Complicated, he said finally. Complicated good or complicated bad? I don't know yet. That's not helpful, man. She has a kid. Silence on the other end. Then, oh. Yeah. How old? Sure. 6. More silence. David had always been better at silence than Ethan, more comfortable letting moments breathe before filling them with words. What are you going to do? David asked finally. I have no idea. Do you like her? That's not the point. That's exactly the point. Ethan started walking again. It's more complicated than that. It's only as complicated as you make it. That's easy for you to say. You don't have a kid depending on you to make the right choices. Neither does she. Apparently, she has a kid depending on her, and she still took the risk of telling you. That counts for something. Bullshit is she. Ethan didn't answer. He was thinking about the way Victoria had looked when she'd said it, nervous but resolute, like someone jumping off a cliff and hoping there was water below. Just think about it, David said. Don't make a decision tonight. Sleep on it. See how you feel in the morning. Yeah, okay. And Ethan? What? Don't overthink this into nothing. That's your specialty, and it's boring. Ethan hung up. By the time he reached his building, the rain had stopped again. The lobby was empty, just the night security guard reading a paperback behind the desk. Ethan took the elevator to the 4th floor, let himself into the apartment quietly. Mrs. Chen was on the couch, knitting something pink and shapeless. She went down around 9:30, Mrs. Chen said without looking up. No problems. Thanks for staying late. It's fine. You look like you're thinking too hard. Is it that obvious? Always is with you. She packed up her knitting. Whatever it is, don't decide tonight. Things look different in the morning. Everyone kept telling him that. After Mrs. Chen left, Ethan checked on Maya. She was sprawled across her bed in that boneless way kids sleep, one arm thrown over her favorite stuffed elephant. Her nightlight cast soft shadows across walls covered in her artwork, crayon drawings of houses and families and impossible animals. He adjusted her blanket, careful not to wake her, then retreated to his own room. Sleep didn't come easily. He lay there thinking about Victoria, about the way she'd looked across the table, wine glass in hand, completely present, about the way she'd laughed at his terrible jokes, about the way her expression had shifted when she'd told him about Lucas, vulnerable but not apologetic. He thought about Maya, about whether bringing someone new into their world was fair to her, whether it was selfish to want something for himself when his entire life was supposed to be about being her father. He thought about his ex, about the way she'd left without looking back, about how that had taught him that people always left eventually, that investing in anything beyond himself and Maya was just asking to get hurt again. But he also thought about what Victoria had said. Real is better than easy. Was it, though? His phone sat on the nightstand, screen dark. He picked it up, opened his messages, stared at Victoria's name. He didn't type anything, not yet. Instead, he set the phone down and closed his eyes, waiting for morning to bring clarity that probably wouldn't come. Outside, the city hummed quietly, indifferent to his confusion. Rain tapped against the window in irregular patterns. Somewhere down the hall, a neighbor's TV murmured through thin walls. Ethan thought about bridges, about the ones Maya was always building with her blocks, about the ones he built for a living, about the metaphorical ones people talked about when they meant connection. All bridges were risks. All of them required faith that the structure would hold, that the foundation was solid enough to bear weight. He'd spent years avoiding that risk. Maybe that was the problem. Or maybe the problem was that he was even considering this at all, considering upending the careful life he'd built for one perfect evening and the promise of something more. His last thought before sleep finally came was of Victoria's hand touching his arm, the gentleness of it, the way it had felt like both a question and an answer. Morning would come. He'd figure it out then. Or he wouldn't. Either way, the night had already changed something he couldn't quite name yet. Morning came with Maya jumping on his bed at 6:45, which was actually sleeping in by her standards. "Dad! Dad! Dad!" Ethan groaned, pulling the pillow over his head. "It's Saturday." "I know. Mrs. Chen said you had a work dinner. Did you bring home dessert?" "No dessert." "That's a terrible work dinner." He couldn't argue with that logic. He sat up, rubbing his face. Maya was already dressed, mismatched socks, her favorite purple shirt with the dinosaur on it, shorts that were probably too short for the weather. Her hair stuck up in approximately 7 different directions. "Hungry?" he asked. "Starving. Can we make pancakes?" "Sure." In the kitchen, Maya climbed onto the counter stool and started narrating her plans for the day, which involved building something called a super tower and possibly teaching their neighbor's cat to do tricks. Ethan measured flour and milk on autopilot, his mind still stuck somewhere between last night's revelation and this morning's routine. He checked his phone first thing. No messages from Victoria. He wasn't sure if that was a relief or a disappointment. "You're being quiet," Maya observed. "Just tired." "From your work dinner?" "Yeah." "Was it boring?" "No, it was actually pretty interesting." "Then why do you look sad?" Ethan glanced at her. She was swinging her legs, watching him with that unnerving perceptiveness kids had when you least wanted it. "I'm not sad, just thinking." "About what?" "Grown-up stuff." That's a boring answer. Most grown-up stuff is boring. She accepted this, turning her attention to the syrup bottle she was trying to open. Ethan took it from her gently, cracked the seal, handed it back. They ate pancakes while Maya explained the structural engineering principles of her super tower, which apparently required at least 40 blocks and defied several laws of physics. Afterward, she retreated to her room to begin construction while Ethan cleaned the kitchen. The routine of it, scraping plates, loading the dishwasher, wiping down counters, usually brought him a sense of order. Today it just felt mechanical. His phone sat on the counter, screen dark and accusing. He picked it up, put it down, picked it up again. David's words from last night circled in his head. Don't overthink this into nothing. But how was he supposed to do anything else? Thinking was what he did, analyzing every angle, anticipating every problem, building safety margins into every decision. It's what made him good at his job. It's what had kept him and Maya afloat after her mother left. It's also what had kept him alone for 3 years. He texted David, "You awake?" The response came immediately. "Been up since 5. Kids don't believe in weekends." "What's up? Can you talk?" "Give me 10 minutes." Ethan poured himself another cup of coffee and went to check on Maya. She was on her bedroom floor, surrounded by blocks, tongue poking out in concentration as she balanced a precarious tower that looked like it might collapse any second. "How's it going?" he asked. "Good. Don't breathe near it." "Wasn't planning to." His phone buzzed, David calling. Ethan stepped into the hallway, closing Maya's door partially. "Hey. So I'm guessing you didn't sleep well," David said without preamble. "Is it that obvious?" "You're calling me before 8 on a Saturday." "Yeah, it's obvious." Ethan leaned against the wall. Down the hall, he could hear Maya humming to herself. "I don't know what to do." "About the woman?" "About all of it." "Okay, walk me through it. What's actually bothering you?" That was David's thing, cutting through the noise to find the actual problem. He'd been doing it since they were kids, since Ethan would spiral over some test or social situation or perceived failure. "She has a 6-year-old son," Ethan said. "And I have Maya. And I spent 3 years making sure Maya's life was stable and predictable. And now I'm thinking about introducing chaos into that." "Is that what Victoria is? Chaos? Isn't she?" "I don't know. I've never met her. But from what you said last night, she sounds pretty put together." "She is. That's part of the problem." "How is that a problem?" Ethan struggled to articulate it. "She's got this whole life, successful, sophisticated, operates in this world I don't understand. And she's raising a kid alone, same as me, except she's doing it while running a company or whatever she does. I can barely manage work and Maya without falling apart." "That's bullshit, and you know it." "Is it?" "Yeah. You're an amazing dad. Maya's happy, healthy, well-adjusted. You're doing fine." "Fine isn't the same as having room for more." David was quiet for a moment. In the background, Ethan could hear his nieces arguing about something. David's voice came back muffled. "Share the markers, or I'm confiscating them both." Then clearer, "Here's what I think. You're scared, obviously." "No, listen. You're scared because you actually like her. If you didn't care, this would be easy. You'd just walk away. But you care, which means it matters, which means you could get hurt. And you're terrible at risking getting hurt." "Well, that's not true." "Name one time in the last 5 years you've taken an emotional risk." Ethan couldn't. "Exactly," David continued. "Look, I'm not saying you should just dive in without thinking. You've got Maya to consider, and that's real. But don't use her as an excuse to protect yourself. That's not fair to either of you." "I'm not." "You are. You've been doing it since Rachel left, using Maya as the reason you can't do anything that might destabilize your perfect little routine." The words stung because they were accurate. "What am I supposed to do then?" "Talk to Victoria. Actually talk to her. Not about whether this is a good idea or what the future looks like. Just talk. See if the connection you felt last night was real or if it was just wine and ambiance. And if it's real, then you figure it out, one step at a time, like everything else." After they hung up, Ethan stood in the hallway for a long moment. Maya's tower had apparently collapsed. He heard her frustrated groan, then the sound of blocks being gathered to start again. He went back to the kitchen, picked up his phone, stared at Victoria's name in his contacts. His thumb hovered over the call button. He chickened out and texted instead, "Hey, you free to talk today?" The response came faster than he expected. "I can be." "When?" "This afternoon? After 2? Works for me." "Want to meet somewhere or just call?" Ethan thought about having this conversation over the phone, trying to read tone without seeing her face. "Meet somewhere?" There's a coffee shop on Westlake. Grounded. Know it? I'll find it. 2:30? See you then. He set the phone down and exhaled slowly. Okay. He was doing this. Whatever this was. The hours until 2:30 crawled by. He took Maya to the park, where she immediately found 3 other kids and organized them into some elaborate game involving a lot of running and negotiating rules. Ethan sat on a bench, watching her navigate the social dynamics of 7-year-olds, and wondered how she'd gotten so good at things he still struggled with. At one point, she ran over, breathless. Can Sophie come over sometime? She has a trampoline, but I have better blocks. Sure, we'll figure out a day. Thanks. She was gone again, back to the group. It was so easy for her. Meeting new people, letting them in, trusting that things would work out. When had he lost that ability? Or had he ever had it in the first place? By 2 o'clock, he'd dropped Maya off at David's house for a few hours. David answered the door with a knowing look. Good luck, he said quietly. I'm just talking to her. Sure, just talking. Shut up, David grinned. Go, don't overthink it. The coffee shop was exactly the kind of place Ethan had expected Victoria to pick. Clean lines, exposed brick, the smell of expensive espresso hanging in the air. Not pretentious exactly, but definitely a step above the chain place by his apartment. She was already there, sitting at a corner table by the window. She'd traded last night's elegance for jeans and a cream sweater, hair down around her shoulders. She looked more approachable this way, more human. She saw him and raised a hand in greeting. Ethan ordered a coffee he didn't want and joined her. Thanks for meeting me, he said, sitting down. Of course. She wrapped both hands around her cup. I wasn't sure you would call. I wasn't sure either. Honest as always. They sat in silence for a moment. The coffee shop wasn't crowded. A few people working on laptops. A couple in the opposite corner having what looked like a serious conversation. I need to apologize, Victoria said finally, for last night, for how I told you about Lucas. That was clumsy. It wasn't clumsy. It was. I spent the whole evening wanting to tell you, chickening out, then blurting it out on the sidewalk like some kind of confession. You deserved better than that. You told me the truth. That's what matters. Still. She looked down at her coffee. I understand if it's too much. If you want to just walk away from this before it gets complicated. It's already complicated. Fair point. Ethan took a breath. Can I ask you something? Anything. Why did you agree to dinner with me in the first place? You must have known this would come up eventually. Victoria considered this. Because I liked you. Because when we talked at that auction, you didn't bullshit me. You didn't try to impress me or perform some version of yourself. You were just real. And I haven't met anyone real in a long time. Real and broke. Don't forget broke. She smiled. I don't care about that. Most people would. I'm not most people. No, you're definitely not. The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable, just weighted with things neither of them knew how to say yet. Tell me about him, Ethan said. About Lucas. Victoria's expression shifted, softened in a way he hadn't seen before. What do you want to know? Everything, anything. She settled back in her chair. He's 6, just finished kindergarten. He's obsessed with dinosaurs and refuses to eat anything green unless you convince him it's what dinosaurs eat. He asks about 1,000 questions a day and remembers every answer, which is terrifying when you accidentally tell him something wrong. Sounds familiar. He's also stubborn as hell. Gets that from me. Once he decides something, good luck changing his mind. Last month he decided he wanted to learn piano. So now we have a piano teacher who comes twice a week. The month before that it was karate. I have a closet full of abandoned hobbies. Does he know you were meeting me today? No, he knows I went out last night, but that's it. I don't introduce him to people I'm dating unless it's serious. Has it been serious with anyone else? Victoria shook her head. Not since his father. There have been dates, but nothing that went anywhere. Most men hear I have a kid and either disappear or start treating me like I'm damaged goods. The ones who stick around usually want to play house without actually doing any of the work. That sounds exhausting. It is. Which is why I stopped trying for a while. focused on Lucas, on work, on building a life that didn't need anyone else to be complete. And now? Now I'm sitting here with someone who might actually get it. She paused. Or might run. Hard to say. Ethan took a sip of his coffee, buying time. I'm not running, but you're thinking about it. I'm thinking about a lot of things. Like what? He set the cup down. Like how I spent the last 3 years building this bubble around Maya and me. Safe, predictable, no surprises. And you're the biggest surprise I've encountered in a long time. Is that bad? I don't know yet. Victoria leaned forward slightly. Can I tell you what I think? Please. I think you're terrified. Not of me, not of Lucas, but of wanting something for yourself. You've spent so long being just Maya's dad that you've forgotten you're allowed to be Ethan too. The observation hit harder than he expected. That's not, it is. I recognize it because I do the same thing. I'm Victoria Hale, CEO, single mother, woman who has everything figured out, except I don't. I'm lonely as hell most of the time. I go to bed wondering if this is all there is. Work and Lucas and the occasional business dinner where everyone wants something from me. But you seem so put together. That's just practice. Inside, I'm as much of a mess as anyone else. Ethan found himself smiling despite everything. That's weirdly reassuring. Right? Turns out successful people are just as confused as everyone else. We're just better at hiding it. A woman walked by their table, pushing a stroller with a sleeping toddler. Victoria watched them pass, something unreadable crossing her face. What was he like? Ethan asked. Lucas's father. Charming, ambitious, completely unprepared for actual responsibility. Victoria's tone was matter-of-fact, no bitterness. We met at a conference, had one of those whirlwind things where everything feels intense and important. I got pregnant, he panicked, and that was pretty much it. He wanted me to... She stopped. Well, I didn't. And he made it clear he wasn't interested in being a father. Signed away parental rights before Lucas was even born. Jesus. Yeah, not my finest decision-making period, but I got Lucas out of it, so I can't regret it completely. Does Lucas ask about him? Sometimes. I tell him the truth, that his father wasn't ready to be a dad, but that it has nothing to do with Lucas being anything less than perfect. I don't know if that's enough, but it's all I've got. Ethan thought about Maya, about the questions she'd started asking lately about her mother, about whether he was handling those conversations right or just making it worse. Maya's been asking more about her mom recently, he said. Where she is, why she left, I don't know what to tell her. What do you say now? That her mom loved her but couldn't be what we needed. That some people aren't meant to be parents, and that's okay. That it's not Maya's fault. That sounds like the right thing. Does it? Because I have no idea. I'm making this up as I go. We all are. Anyone who says otherwise is lying. They talked for another hour about parenting, about work, about the weird challenge of maintaining your own identity while being completely consumed by someone else's needs. Victoria told him about board meetings where she had to pretend she hadn't been up until 3 in the morning with a sick kid. Ethan told her about construction sites where he'd taken calls from Maya's school about forgotten lunchboxes and permission slips. It was easy. Too easy, maybe. Finally, Victoria glanced at her phone. I need to get back soon. Lucas is with my sister and she has plans tonight. Yeah, I should grab Maya from my brothers. They stood. Outside, the afternoon sun was starting to slant golden through the trees. The street was quiet, just a few cars passing. So, Victoria said. What now? I don't know. Still honest. Still honest. She studied him for a long moment. I'm not going to push you, Ethan. I meant what I said last night. If this is too much, I understand. But I need to know where we stand. I can't do the ambiguous thing where we text occasionally and maybe see each other and nothing ever actually happens. What do you want? I want to see where this goes. I want to spend time with you. See if what we have is real or just two lonely people grabbing at something that looks like connection. But I also want you to be sure. Because once Lucas gets involved, once this becomes more than just us, I need to know you're in it. And if I can't promise that yet, then be honest about it. Don't string me along while you figure yourself out. Ethan shoved his hands in his pockets. A block away, someone was playing music from an open window. Jazz, maybe. Something old and mournful. I like you, he said. A lot. More than I expected to like anyone after Rachel, but I need time to figure out if I can do this. Not just dating you, but everything that comes with it. Maya, Lucas, blending two complicated lives together. How much time? I don't know, a week? 2 weeks? Victoria nodded slowly. Okay, take your time, think about it. And when you've decided, let me know. And if I decide I can't, then we say goodbye like adults and move on. She said it simply, but he caught the flash of something in her eyes. Disappointment, maybe, or resignation. Like she was already preparing for him to choose the safe option. Victoria? Yeah? I'm not trying to let you down easy. I just need to be sure. I know. That's what makes you different from most of the guys I've dated. You actually care about getting it right. She leaned in and kissed his cheek, quick, casual, but it sent a jolt through him anyway. Call me, she said. Then she was walking away. Keys already in hand, moving with that same efficient grace he'd noticed the first time he saw her. Ethan stood there for a moment, watching her go. His phone buzzed. David. How'd it go? Still processing. That good or that bad? Both. Picking up Maya in 20. He drove to David's house on autopilot, his mind churning through the conversation. By the time he pulled into the driveway, he'd replayed it at least 5 times, analyzing every word, every pause. Maya was in the backyard with her cousins, covered in dirt and completely happy. She ran over when she saw him. Can I stay longer? We're building a fort. Maybe another day. We should get home. Ah. David walked him to the car while Maya said her goodbyes. So? How was it? Confusing. Did you figure out what you want? Not even close. But you're thinking about it? Can't stop thinking about it. David clapped him on the shoulder. That's progress, man. You'll figure it out. At home, Maya took a bath while Ethan started dinner. Pasta. Easy. Reliable. Maya's favorite. He moved through the motions automatically, his thoughts elsewhere. He imagined what it would be like to introduce Maya to Victoria, to Lucas. Would they get along? Would Maya feel threatened by another kid entering their dynamic? Would Lucas resent some stranger trying to insert himself into his and his mother's life? And what about him and Victoria? Was what they had strong enough to weather the inevitable complications of blending families? Or would they crash and burn the first time things got difficult, leaving both kids confused and hurt? Dad! Maya's voice pulled him back. She was standing in the doorway in her pajamas, hair wet and tangled. Yeah? You're burning something. He looked down. The garlic he'd been sautéing was turning black. He yanked the pan off the heat, cursing under his breath. Oops, Maya said. Oops is right. He scraped the burnt garlic into the trash and started over. Maya climbed onto the counter stool, watching him. You're distracted today, she observed. A little. Because of your work dinner? He glanced at her. Why do you keep asking about that? Because you're acting weird, like when you're worried about something but trying to hide it. Sometimes he forgot how perceptive she was. I'm not worried. Then what are you? Thinking. About what? He turned to face her fully. If I asked you a hypothetical question, would you give me an honest answer? What's hypothetical? Pretend. Okay. If I started dating someone, not right now, but maybe someday, how would you feel about that? Maya's expression went through several shifts: surprise, consideration, something that might have been suspicion. Dating like boyfriend-girlfriend dating? Yeah. Would she be nice? Very nice. Would she try to be my mom? No. You already have a mom. She'd just be someone I spend time with. Maya swung her legs, thinking, would I have to spend time with her too? Maybe sometimes, if things got serious. What if I don't like her? Then we'd talk about it. And you'd stop seeing her. Ethan hesitated. I don't know. It would depend on a lot of things. Maya was quiet for a long moment. Then, is this hypothetical or is there actually someone? He couldn't lie to her. There might be someone. Do I know her? No. When do I get to meet her? I don't know if you will. It's complicated. You keep saying that. What's complicated about it? How did you explain to a 7-year-old that sometimes the things you wanted most were the scariest to reach for? That risk and reward were always tangled together? She has a kid too, Ethan said. A little boy, 6 years old. Maya's eyes widened. Really? Yeah. Is that the complicated part? Some of it. Does he like dinosaurs? The question caught him off guard. I don't know. You should find out. That's important. Despite everything, Ethan smiled. You're right. That is important. If he likes dinosaurs, we could probably be friends. Yeah? Yeah. And if you like her and she's nice, then I guess it's okay if you date her, as long as she doesn't try to replace mom or make me eat vegetables I don't like. That's fair. But I want to meet her first, before you decide anything serious. Deal. Maya seemed satisfied with this. She hopped off the stool and headed toward her room. I'm going to draw something. Call me when dinner's ready. Will do. Alone in the kitchen, Ethan leaned against the counter and exhaled. That had gone better than expected. Maya was open to the idea, at least in theory. That was something. His phone sat on the counter next to the stove. He picked it up, opened his messages. Victoria's name stared back at him. He typed, "Had a conversation with Maya. She wants to know if Lucas likes dinosaurs." The response came a few minutes later. He's obsessed with them, has approximately 40 dinosaur toys. Why? Maya says that's important information for determining friendship potential. Smart kid. She takes after me. Clearly. Ethan stared at the screen, then typed, "Can we talk tomorrow?" Actually talk, not just text. Sure, call me whenever. He set the phone down and finished making dinner. Later, after Maya was in bed and the apartment was quiet, he sat on the couch with a beer he wasn't really drinking and thought about everything. About Victoria's smile when she talked about Lucas. About the way she'd looked when she'd kissed his cheek goodbye. About the possibility of building something real with someone who understood what it meant to love your kid more than anything while still wanting something for yourself. About risk. About reward. About whether he was brave enough to try. Outside, the city hummed on, indifferent to his crisis. Somewhere out there, Victoria was probably putting Lucas to bed, reading him a story, navigating her own version of single parenthood. Somewhere out there was the possibility of more. The question was whether he'd let himself reach for it. He picked up his phone one more time, scrolled through the messages, reread everything she'd sent. Then he opened a new message and typed, "I'm scared of screwing this up." Her response came quickly. "Me too. But you're still willing to try." "Yeah." "You?" His thumb hovered over the keyboard for a long moment. Then he typed, "Yeah. I am. Good. Call me tomorrow. We'll figure it out." He set the phone down and leaned back, closing his eyes. Tomorrow he'd call her. Tomorrow he'd start figuring out how to do this without destroying everything he'd built. Tonight, though, he'd let himself feel something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. Terrifying. Complicated, completely unreasonable hope. And maybe that was enough to start with. The call happened on Sunday afternoon, while Maya was at a birthday party and Ethan had 2 hours of unexpected quiet. He'd been staring at his phone for 10 minutes before finally hitting the call button. Victoria answered on the second ring. Hey, is this a good time? Lucas is watching a movie. I've got maybe 90 minutes before he gets bored and decides the living room needs to become a dinosaur habitat." Ethan smiled despite his nerves. Maya does the same thing. "Last week, our hallway was apparently the Amazon rainforest. Did you survive?" "Barely. There were stuffed animals everywhere." Victoria laughed, and the sound did something to the knot in Ethan's chest. Made it loosen slightly. "So," she said, "you wanted to talk." "Yeah. I've been thinking about what you said, about needing to know where we stand." "And?" He took a breath. "I want to try. I'm terrified, and I have no idea how to do this, but I want to try." A silence on the other end. Then, "Really? Really? Maya's okay with it. Well, she's okay with the idea of it. And I keep thinking about what you said about being lonely. I'm tired of being lonely. That's not the most romantic reason to date someone. No, but it's honest. Fair enough. He could hear the smile in her voice. So what does trying look like to you? I don't know. Slowly, I guess. We see each other, we talk, we figure out if this actually works outside of fancy restaurants and coffee shops. And the kids? Eventually, when we're sure this is going somewhere, I don't want to introduce Maya to someone who might not stick around. I get that. I feel the same way about Lucas. So we take it slow. We're careful. We don't screw up our kids while we figure our shit out. Sounds like a plan. Victoria paused. Can I ask you something? Anything. What changed? Between yesterday and now? Ethan leaned back on the couch. I talked to Maya, and she asked me if this hypothetical person made me happy. And I realized I didn't know because I've spent so long not thinking about my own happiness that I forgot it was even an option. Does it make you happy? The idea of you? Yeah, it does. Good, because you make me happy too, which is terrifying in its own way. Why terrifying? Because I'm used to controlling things. My schedule, my company, my life. And this? You. I can't control. I can only show up and hope it works. Welcome to the club. I've been operating on hope for years. They talked for another hour. Not about anything heavy, just life. Victoria told him about Lucas's latest obsession with building things, how he'd commandeered every pillow in the apartment to construct what he called a fortress of destiny. Ethan told her about Maya's recent declaration that she wanted to be a paleontologist, which had lasted approximately 4 days before she decided she'd rather be a chef. It was easy, natural, like they'd been doing this for years instead of days. When they finally hung up, Ethan felt lighter than he had in months, maybe years. The next 2 weeks fell into a pattern. They texted throughout the day, nothing profound, just small moments. Victoria would send him a photo of Lucas covered in paint after an art project gone wrong. Ethan would send her a picture of Maya's latest architectural creation. They talked on the phone most evenings after the kids were asleep, conversations that stretched past midnight and left Ethan exhausted but happy. They met for lunch twice during the week, stolen hours between meetings and school pickups. Once at a Thai place near her office, once at a sandwich shop near his construction site. Both times, Ethan left feeling like he'd been given something he didn't deserve but desperately wanted to keep. On Friday, Victoria called him around 9. What are you doing tomorrow? Depends. What did you have in mind? There's a park near my place. Good playground, lots of space. I was thinking maybe it's time. Ethan's stomach dropped. Time for what? For them to meet. Casually, no pressure, just 2 kids playing at a park while their parents happen to be there. That's a terrible plan. You have a better one? He didn't. What if they hate each other? Then we deal with it. But Maya likes dinosaurs. Lucas likes dinosaurs. That's a starting point. That's a very thin starting point. It's what we've got. Look, we can keep waiting for the perfect moment, but there isn't one. At some point, we just have to do it. Ethan pressed the heel of his hand against his forehead. She was right. He knew she was right. But that didn't make the idea any less terrifying. Okay, he said finally. Tomorrow. What time? 10? That gives us the morning before it gets too crowded. 10 works. Ethan. Yeah? It's going to be fine. They're kids. Kids are resilient. I know. Do you? Not even a little bit. She laughed. Honest as always, I'll text you the address. That night, Ethan lay awake running through every possible scenario. Maya refusing to play with Lucas. Lucas deciding Maya was annoying. Both kids getting along great but then falling apart later. Himself saying the wrong thing and making everything awkward. By morning, he'd convinced himself this was a disaster waiting to happen. Maya was oblivious to his anxiety. She bounced around the apartment while he made breakfast, chattering about some show she'd watched. We're going to the park today, Ethan said, interrupting her monologue about cartoon characters he didn't recognize. Which park? A different one, across town. Why? Here it was. Because I'm meeting someone there. The person I told you about. Maya stopped mid-bounce. The one with the kid? Yeah. Today? Today. She processed this for a moment. Is he bringing his dinosaurs? I don't know, maybe. I should bring mine then, for comparison. That's, actually a good idea. They spent the next 20 minutes selecting which dinosaurs to bring. Maya treated it like a diplomatic mission, carefully choosing representatives from different species and time periods. Ethan watched her, wondering how she'd gotten so much better at this than he was. The drive across town took 40 minutes. Maya kept up a running commentary about dinosaur facts she'd learned from various documentaries. Ethan tried to focus on driving instead of the growing knot in his stomach. Victoria had sent him the address of a park he'd never been to before. Something upscale and well-maintained, with equipment that looked expensive and safe in equal measure. He found parking and killed the engine. Ready? He asked Maya. Yep. Are you ready? Not even close. You'll be fine, Dad. Just be normal. Thanks for the advice. They found Victoria and Lucas near the playground. Victoria was sitting on a bench, looking relaxed in jeans and a light jacket. Next to her was a boy with dark hair and serious eyes, clutching a plastic stegosaurus. Lucas. Ethan's first thought was how much the kid looked like Victoria. Same bone structure, same way of holding himself like he was evaluating everything. His second thought was that this was actually happening and there was no backing out now. Victoria stood when she saw them approaching. Hey. Hey. Maya had gone quiet beside him, suddenly shy in a way she rarely was. Ethan put a hand on her shoulder. Maya, this is Victoria, and this is Lucas. Victoria crouched down to Maya's level. Hi, Maya. Your dad's told me a lot about you. He told me about you too, Maya said quietly. Lucas stepped forward, still clutching his dinosaur. For a long moment, the two kids just stared at each other. Ethan could feel tension radiating off his own body, could see Victoria watching her son with the same careful attention. Then Lucas held up the stegosaurus. Do you like dinosaurs? Maya's whole face lit up. I love dinosaurs. She pulled out her own plastic T-Rex. This is Rexy. He's a Tyrannosaurus Rex from the late Cretaceous period. Lucas examined the T-Rex with scientific seriousness. Cool, this is Spike. He's a Stegosaurus from the late Jurassic period. They never actually lived at the same time. I know, but they can still be friends and pretend. That's true. Just like that, the tension broke. The kids moved toward the playground equipment, already deep in conversation about which dinosaurs could beat which other dinosaurs in a fight. Ethan exhaled slowly. Victoria touched his arm. See? Fine. We got lucky. Maybe. Or maybe kids are better at this than we are. They sat on the bench, maintaining a clear line of sight to the playground. Lucas and Maya had claimed the top of the jungle gym and were arranging their dinosaurs in some elaborate scenario that involved a lot of roaring. He seems like a good kid, Ethan said. He is. Stubborn, but good. Victoria watched them play. Maya's great. You've done a really good job with her. Thanks. You too, with Lucas. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, just watching. Other parents arrived with their kids, the playground filled with the sounds of children playing, the rhythmic squeak of swings, the occasional argument over whose turn it was. After about 20 minutes, Lucas climbed down and ran over. Mom, can we go to the slides? Sure. Can Maya come? Victoria glanced at Ethan. He nodded. Maya, Lucas called. Want to go to the slides? Maya scrambled down and followed him. The two of them took off running, dinosaurs abandoned on top of the jungle gym. That was easier than I expected, Ethan admitted. Don't jinx it. We've still got at least an hour before someone has a meltdown. Optimistic. Realistic. They moved to a bench closer to the slides, watching the kids climb and slide and climb again. At one point, Maya showed Lucas how to go down backwards. He tried it, succeeded, and they both dissolved into laughter. They're cute together, Victoria said. Yeah, they are. Does this feel weird to you? Extremely. Good. It's not just me then. A kid ran between them chasing a ball. Ethan tracked the movement automatically, the way he always did in public spaces with Maya. Constant vigilance, constant awareness of potential hazards. Can I ask you something? Victoria said. Sure. What scares you most about this? About us? Ethan thought about deflecting, keeping things light, but she'd asked for honesty from the beginning. Failing, he said. Screwing this up so badly that both kids end up hurt. Maya getting attached to you and Lucas and then having you disappear, or vice versa. That's fair. What about you? What scares you? Victoria was quiet for a moment. Losing control. I've spent 6 years building a life where I call all the shots. Lucas and I have our routine, our rhythm. Letting you into that means giving up some of that control. And I'm not good at that. Nobody's good at that. You'd be surprised. Some people make it look easy. Those people are lying. She smiled. Probably. Lucas came running back, out of breath. Can we get ice cream? It's 10:30 in the morning, Victoria said. So? So, no ice cream before lunch. What if we have lunch first and then ice cream? Nice try. Maybe later. Lucas accepted this with surprising grace and ran back to Maya, who was attempting to climb up the slide instead of sliding down it. Does he always negotiate like that? Ethan asked. Always. Kid could be a lawyer. Maya's the same way. Last week she tried to convince me that staying up until 9:30 was actually good for her education because she was watching a documentary. Was she? It was about penguins, so technically yes, but still no. They watched the kids for another hour. At one point, a minor crisis erupted when Lucas wanted to play on the swings, but Maya wanted to keep exploring the jungle gym. Ethan tensed, waiting for tears or arguments, but Victoria just called Lucas over. How about you do swings for 15 minutes, then jungle gym for 15 minutes, she suggested. Lucas considered this. Okay, but I get to pick what we do after. Deal. Crisis averted. You're good at that, Ethan said. Lots of practice, though some days are better than others. Tell me about it. Around noon, both kids started showing signs of hunger-induced crankiness. Lucas got whiny about leaving the playground. Maya kept insisting she wasn't hungry, even as she complained about being tired. Should we get lunch? Victoria suggested. There's a pizza place 2 blocks from here. Ethan hesitated. Extending the day meant more time together, more chances for things to go wrong. It also meant more time with Victoria, which he wanted more than he'd admit. Sure, he said. Maya, you hungry? I guess. Lucas, can we get pepperoni? We can get whatever you want. The pizza place was exactly the kind of casual family restaurant Ethan had been to 1,000 times. Red checkered tablecloths, a jukebox in the corner, the smell of garlic and melted cheese. They grabbed a booth near the window. Maya and Lucas sat on one side, still clutching their dinosaurs. Ethan and Victoria sat opposite. It felt surreal, like they were playing at being a family without actually being one. What do you guys want? Victoria asked, scanning the menu. Pepperoni, Lucas said immediately. I want cheese, Maya added. We can do half and half, Ethan suggested. They ordered a large pizza and drinks. While they waited, the kids started playing some elaborate game involving making their dinosaurs talk to each other. Lucas's Stegosaurus apparently had a British accent. Maya's T-Rex sounded vaguely like a surfer. Where did they learn this, Ethan asked. No idea. Kids are weird. The pizza arrived. For about 10 minutes, everyone was quiet, focused on eating. Then Lucas looked at Ethan and asked, completely out of nowhere, Do you know how to build bridges? Ethan blinked. Yeah, actually, I do. That's part of my job. Real bridges? Real bridges. Not as exciting as you're probably thinking. Mostly I manage the people who actually build them. But you know how they work. I do. Can you show me? Victoria started to intervene. Lucas, let the man eat. But Ethan waved her off. He grabbed a napkin and a pen from his pocket and started sketching. Okay, so the basic idea of a bridge is distributing weight, he said. You've got the deck, that's what you drive on, and then you've got supports underneath. The supports transfer the weight down to the ground. Lucas watched with intense concentration. Maya leaned over to see too. There are different types, Ethan continued. Beam bridges, arch bridges, suspension bridges. Each one works a little differently. Which one is strongest? Depends on what you're trying to do. For long distances, suspension bridges work best. For shorter distances, beam bridges are simpler. Can we build one? Like a real one? No, a pretend one, with blocks or something. Ethan looked at Victoria, who shrugged. I mean, we could. Do you have blocks at home? Tons, Victoria said, like an embarrassing amount of blocks. Can we go build one now? Lucas asked. After we finish eating, Victoria said. And after you ask nicely. Please, can we go build one now? After eating. Maya perked up. I'm really good at building with blocks. I could help. Yeah? Lucas looked at her with new respect. What's the tallest thing you've ever built? A tower that was this tall. Maya held her hands about 3 feet apart. But it fell down. Mine always fall down too. We just have to make the base wider. That's what my dad says. Ethan caught Victoria's eye. She looked amused and maybe slightly overwhelmed. Are we doing this? She asked quietly. I guess we are. They finished lunch and piled into separate cars. Ethan followed Victoria's GPS to an address in a neighborhood he'd driven through but never stopped in. Tree-lined streets, well-maintained houses, the kind of area that screamed money without being obnoxious about it. Victoria's house was a 2-story brick colonial with a neatly trimmed lawn and flower beds that someone clearly tended regularly. Ethan felt immediately out of his depth. Inside was just as polished. Hardwood floors, tasteful furniture, the kind of organized cleanliness that suggested either a cleaning service or superhuman discipline. Toys were visible, but contained to specific areas. Art hung on the walls. Everything had a place. Lucas, show them your block collection, Victoria said, hanging up her keys. Lucas grabbed Maya's hand and dragged her toward a room off the main hallway. Ethan heard their voices fade as they disappeared. Your house is amazing, he said. Victoria shrugged. Thanks. It's too big for just the two of us, but I wanted Lucas to have space to run around. You have an actual yard. You say that like it's a mythical creature. In my neighborhood, it kind of is. She smiled. Want coffee? Sure. In the kitchen, which was bigger than Ethan's entire apartment, Victoria made coffee while he stood awkwardly, trying not to touch anything. The space was beautiful but sterile in a way that made him conscious of his worn jeans and the fact that he hadn't shaved in 2 days. You can sit down, Victoria said, reading his discomfort. You're not going to break anything. Your house is very clean. I have someone who comes twice a week. Don't be too impressed. Still, my place looks like a bomb went off most days. That's because you have a 7-year-old. If I didn't have help, this place would look the same. She handed him a mug. Their fingers touched briefly, and Ethan felt that same jolt from the restaurant, from the coffee shop, from every time they'd been close. From the other room came the sound of blocks tumbling and kids laughing. Should we check on them? Ethan asked. Give them a few minutes. They're fine. They sat at the kitchen island, coffee growing cold between them. The afternoon sun came through the windows at an angle that made everything look softer. This is weird, right? Victoria said. Extremely. But good weird? Yeah, good weird. The kids appeared in the doorway, Lucas leading the way. We need help. The bridge keeps falling down. Ethan set down his coffee. Okay, show me what you've got. In the playroom, because of course there was a dedicated playroom, blocks were scattered across the floor in what might charitably be called organized chaos. Maya and Lucas had attempted some kind of suspension bridge design, but had run into the fundamental problem of physics. Ethan sat down cross-legged. All right, first problem, your towers aren't tall enough for the cables, see? If you want the bridge to hang, you need height. He started rebuilding one tower, showing them how to create a stable base. Maya caught on immediately and started working on the other tower. Lucas gathered blocks to hand to them. Victoria stood in the doorway watching. Ethan could feel her eyes on him but didn't look up. He was too focused on the engineering problem in front of him, on showing these kids how structure and balance work together. Now the cable, he said, using string from Lucas's craft supplies. We attach here, and the deck hangs from them. They worked on it for maybe 20 minutes. The bridge was crude, definitely not to scale, but it held. When they finally stepped back, Lucas looked at it with pure wonder. "We built a bridge," he said. "We did. Can we drive cars over it?" "Probably not. It's pretty fragile." "Can we try?" "Sure. Gently, though." Lucas ran to get his toy cars. Maya helped him line them up at one end of the bridge. They pushed them across slowly, holding their breath. The bridge swayed but held. "It works," Maya said. "It does." Lucas looked at Ethan. "Are you going to stay?" The question landed like a punch. Ethan froze, suddenly hyper-aware of Victoria in the doorway, of Maya watching him, of the magnitude of what this 6-year-old was actually asking. "Stay for what?" he managed. "I don't know, for dinner maybe, or just stay." There it was. The question he'd been dreading and hoping for in equal measure, not coming from Victoria, but from her son, who was looking at him with complete openness, no guile, just simple curiosity about whether this person would be part of his life. Ethan glanced at Victoria. She was watching him with an unreadable expression. He started, then stopped. "I'd like to, if that's okay with your mom." "Mom?" Victoria stepped into the room. "Yeah, you can stay for dinner." "Can Maya stay too?" Lucas asked. Of course Maya can stay. Maya pumped her fist in victory, apparently having no anxiety about any of this. Lucas did the same. They went back to playing with the bridge, crisis averted. Ethan stood, his knees creaking slightly. Victoria touched his elbow, guiding him back to the kitchen. "You okay?" she asked quietly. That was intense. He does that, asks big questions like they're nothing. Maya does too. I'm never prepared for it. I don't think you can be prepared for it. She started pulling things out of the refrigerator. I was going to make pasta. That work? Pasta's great. Can you chop vegetables? I can barely boil water, but I'll try. She handed him a knife and a cutting board, showed him the tomatoes and peppers that needed cutting. They worked in companionable silence, the sound of kids playing filtering in from the other room. It felt domestic, frighteningly normal. Ethan? Yeah? Thank you. For what? For staying, for trying, for not running when Lucas asked you that question. I thought about it. I know, but you didn't. She was close enough that he could smell her shampoo, something clean and subtle. Close enough that it would take almost nothing to close the distance between them. He didn't. Not with the kids in the next room, not with everything still so new and fragile. But he wanted to. Dinner was chaotic in the way meals with kids always were. Lucas spilled his juice. Maya talked with her mouth full. Ethan had to remind them both 3 times to actually eat instead of just playing with their food. But it was also easy, natural, like they'd been doing this for years. After dinner, Maya and Lucas built another bridge. This one an arch design that was even more precarious than the first. It collapsed twice before they got it right. By 8, Maya was yawning. Ethan checked his watch and stood. We should probably head out. Maya groaned. Do we have to? School tomorrow. School's boring. You love school. Not when I could be building bridges. They gathered their things. Lucas gave Maya one of his dinosaurs, a small triceratops, as a gift. Maya gave him her T-Rex in return. Some kind of treaty Ethan didn't fully understand but recognized as important. At the door, Victoria walked them out. Thanks for today. Thank you for letting us crash your afternoon. You didn't crash, you were invited. She looked down at Maya. It was really nice to meet you, Maya. You too. Can we come back sometime? I'd like that. Maya ran ahead to the car. Ethan lingered for a moment, one foot already on the front step. Lucas's question, he said, about staying. You don't have to. I want to. Stay. Not just for dinner, for whatever this becomes. Victoria's expression shifted. Relief, maybe, or something close to it. Yeah? Yeah, I'm still terrified, but I want to. Good, because so do I. She kissed him then. Quick, chaste, nothing Maya could see from the car, but it was enough to make his heart stutter. Call me later? She asked. Always. In the car, Maya buckled herself in and hugged the Triceratops. Lucas is nice. Yeah, he is. Victoria's nice too. She is. Are you going to date her for real now? I think so. Is that okay? Maya thought about it. Yeah, but you have to be normal about it. Don't get all weird and mushy. I'll do my best. And if you marry her, do I get to be in the wedding? We're not. That's not. We just started dating. But if you do? Yes. You'd be in the wedding. Good, because I'd be really mad if I wasn't. Ethan drove home with a smile he couldn't quite suppress. His phone buzzed at a red light, a text from Victoria. Lucas asked if you and Maya are going to live here now. I told him we'd have to see. Apparently that was an acceptable answer. Ethan typed back. Maya asked if she gets to be in our wedding. Also told her we'd have to see. Wow. They move fast. Kids have no sense of appropriate timelines. Neither do I, apparently. I'm already thinking about next weekend. What about next weekend? Come over Saturday. We'll make it a regular thing. Ethan stared at the text. A regular thing. The idea was terrifying and perfect in equal measure. Yeah. Okay, Saturday. He drove the rest of the way home feeling something he hadn't felt in years, like the future might actually be something to look forward to instead of just something to manage. At home, Maya went through her bedtime routine without complaint. She was asleep within minutes, the triceratops clutched in one hand. Ethan sat on the couch with his phone, rereading the day's texts. Outside, the city hummed. Inside, everything felt different, lighter. His phone rang. Victoria. Hey, he answered. Hey, I wasn't sure you'd still be up. Couldn't sleep if I tried. Me neither. Today was good. Yeah, it was. They talked for an hour. About nothing. About everything. About the impossibility of what they were attempting and the fact that they were attempting it anyway. When they finally hung up, Ethan lay in bed staring at the ceiling, his mind already planning next Saturday, already imagining what came after. Somewhere across the city, Victoria was probably doing the same thing, and their kids were asleep, dreaming about dinosaurs and bridges and whatever else occupied the minds of 6- and 7-year-olds. It wasn't perfect. It was messy and complicated and likely to get more complicated, but it was real. And for now, that was enough. Saturday became their day. Over the next month, it turned into a routine that felt both natural and strange. Ethan and Maya showing up at Victoria's house around 10, spending the day together, leaving after dinner. Sometimes they went to the park. Sometimes they stayed in and built increasingly elaborate structures. Once they attempted baking cookies, which resulted in a kitchen covered in flour and cookies that were somehow both burnt and undercooked. The kids got along better than Ethan had dared to hope. Maya and Lucas bickered occasionally, mostly about whose turn it was or whose architectural vision was superior, but they also developed their own language, their own inside jokes. They invented games that made no sense to anyone else. They formed an alliance against vegetables at dinner. Watching them together did something to Ethan, made him see possibilities he'd stopped imagining years ago. But it wasn't all easy. 3 weeks in, Maya had a meltdown because Lucas got to pick the movie and she didn't. She locked herself in Victoria's bathroom and refused to come out for 20 minutes. Ethan stood outside the door, negotiating through wood, while Victoria kept Lucas occupied downstairs. Maya, come on, you're being ridiculous. I'm not. Lucas always gets to pick. That's not true. You picked last week. That was different. How was it different? Because I wanted to pick today. Ethan pressed his forehead against the door. You can pick next time, I promise. You always say that, because I always mean it. Eventually she emerged, red-eyed and sullen. She apologized to Lucas, who accepted it with the easy forgiveness of a 6-year-old. But Ethan caught Victoria's expression, concern, maybe, or second thoughts about whether this whole arrangement was sustainable. That night, after they'd left, Victoria called him. Is she okay? She asked without preamble. She's fine. Overtired. She gets like this sometimes when her routine gets disrupted. I'm sorry. I should have had them take turns or something. It's not your fault. She's just adjusting. Are we pushing this too fast? The question hung between them. Ethan sat on his couch in the dark, phone pressed to his ear, trying to find the right answer. Maybe, he said honestly. I don't know. Every Saturday feels great in the moment, But then Maya acts out during the week, and I wonder if we're asking too much of her. Lucas has been having nightmares. About what? I don't know. He won't tell me. But he's been waking up at 3 in the morning and crawling into my bed. He hasn't done that in over a year. Ethan closed his eyes. So what do we do? I don't know. Pull back? Space things out more? Do you want to? Silence. Then, no, but I don't want to hurt them either. Neither do I. They decided to cut back to every other Saturday. Give everyone more breathing room. It made sense logically. Emotionally, it felt like admitting defeat. The next Saturday without Victoria and Lucas felt wrong. Maya moped around the apartment, asking repeatedly when they'd see them again. Ethan took her to their regular park, but she complained it was boring. They made pancakes, her favorite, but she barely ate them. I miss Lucas, she said finally, pushing her plate away. I know, honey. Can we call him? Maybe later. Can they come over here instead? Not today. Why not? Because we're trying to be responsible, Ethan wanted to say. Because we're scared of screwing this up worse than it's already getting screwed up. Instead, he said, because everyone needs space sometimes. That's a stupid reason. She wasn't wrong. Ethan texted Victoria later. How's your day going? Lucas keeps asking why we're not seeing you guys. I'm running out of explanations that don't sound like we're breaking up. Are we? Breaking up? I don't think so. Are we? No, I don't want to. Then what are we doing? Making this harder than it needs to be, probably. That sounds about right. The week dragged. Work was busy. A project running behind schedule. A contractor who kept screwing up specs. Ethan spent long hours on site, coming home exhausted to a daughter who was increasingly moody. Maya's teacher called on Wednesday to say she'd been distracted in class, not finishing assignments. Is everything okay at home? The teacher asked. Ethan lied and said everything was fine. Thursday night, his phone rang at 11. Victoria. Sorry, she said. I know it's late. It's fine. What's up? I need to tell you something. His stomach dropped. Okay. Lucas asked me today if you were going to be his dad. Ethan sat up straighter. What did you say? I told him you weren't trying to replace anyone, that you were someone I cared about who also cared about him. He asked if that meant you were staying. I said I hoped so, but couldn't promise. How'd he take that? He cried. Not a lot, just quiet tears. Then he asked if it was his fault you weren't around as much anymore. Jesus. Yeah. Victoria's voice was tight. I'm not doing this right, Ethan. I don't know how to balance making him feel secure while also not lying to him about things I can't control. You think I do? Maya asked me the same thing in different words. She wanted to know if you were going to be her mom. I gave her some bullshit answer about how adults are friends who spend time together. She saw right through it. So they're both miserable and confused. Apparently. Great parenting on our part. World class. They were quiet for a moment. Ethan could hear traffic in the background on Victoria's end. She was probably in her car, parked somewhere, needing this conversation away from Lucas. I miss you, Victoria said quietly. I miss you too. This is stupid, the whole pulling back thing. We're making everyone unhappy in the name of being careful. So what do you want to do? I want to stop overthinking every single interaction. I want to see you without feeling guilty about it. I want Lucas and Maya to play without me analyzing whether it's too much too fast. That sounds amazing and terrifying. Everything about this is terrifying. Fair point. Can we try again? Actually try, not this half-in thing we've been doing. Ethan thought about Maya's face when she talked about Lucas, about how light Victoria's voice got when she laughed, about the bridge they'd built together and how fragile it had been, but how it had held anyway. Yeah, he said. Let's try. This Saturday? This Saturday. When Saturday came, it felt different. Less like an experiment, more like a choice they were both consciously making. Ethan showed up at Victoria's with Maya, who immediately ran inside looking for Lucas. The two kids collided in the hallway in a tangle of hugs and excited chatter. I brought my new dinosaur book, Maya announced. I got a new Lego set. Want to build it? They disappeared upstairs before Ethan had even taken off his jacket. Victoria stood in the doorway looking tired but happy. Hi. Coffee? Always. In the kitchen, she made coffee while he sat at the island. The silence between them wasn't uncomfortable, just full. I've been thinking, Victoria said, not looking at him. About? About what we're actually doing here. What the end game is. And? She turned to face him. I don't want to date casually. I don't want to keep meeting at parks and having dinners while we figure out if this is worth pursuing. I already know it's worth pursuing. So what do you want? I want you in my life. Really in it. Not Saturday visits, not careful scheduling. I want you and Maya to be part of our routine the way Lucas and I want to be part of yours. Ethan's heart was doing something complicated in his chest. That's a big ask. I know, and if you're not ready for it, I understand. But I need to know where we're going, because I can't keep doing this halfway thing. It's not fair to any of us. He stood, crossing to where she stood by the coffee maker. Close enough to see the uncertainty in her eyes, the vulnerability she tried so hard to hide. I'm terrified, he said. I know. Maya's going to get hurt if this doesn't work. Lucas, too. We could screw this up in about 100 different ways. Probably more than 100. And you still want to do this? Victoria reached for his hand. Yeah, I do. Ethan looked down at their intertwined fingers. Her grip was firm, certain, everything he wasn't. Okay, he said. Okay? Yeah, let's do this. Really, do it. She kissed him then. Not the quick pecks they'd exchanged before, but something deeper, more real. Something that tasted like coffee and felt like promise. When they broke apart, they were both smiling. So what does this actually mean? Ethan asked. Logistically? I have no idea. We figure it out as we go. That's a terrible plan. You have a better one? He didn't. Upstairs, something crashed. They both froze, listening. Then came giggles. We're okay, Lucas called down. The tower just fell. Victoria exhaled. One of these days, that's going to be an actual emergency. Probably today, knowing our luck. They went upstairs to find the kids surrounded by Lego pieces, working on rebuilding whatever had collapsed. Maya looked up when they entered. Can Lucas come to our house next time? Ethan glanced at Victoria. Sure, yeah, that'd be good. Can I see your room? Lucas asked Maya. It's not as big as yours. That's okay. I want to see your dinosaur collection. Deal. But you have to show me all your Legos. Deal. Just like that, the kids had negotiated what the adults had been agonizing over for weeks. The rest of the day unfolded easily. They made lunch together, sandwiches that were more assembly than cooking, played a board game that Lucas won, which made Maya grumpy until she won the next round, built another bridge, this one a combination design that was overly ambitious and collapsed spectacularly. Around 4, Victoria's phone rang. She glanced at the screen and frowned. I need to take this. Work thing. 5 minutes. She disappeared into her office. Ethan could hear her voice through the door, professional, clipped, handling whatever crisis had emerged. Lucas tugged on Ethan's sleeve. Can you help us with the bridge? The middle part keeps sagging. Sure. Ethan sat down with the kids, showing them how to add supports to the center span. Maya caught on quickly, already implementing the fix. Lucas watched, fascinated. You're really good at building, Lucas said. Lots of practice. Do you build things at your job? Sort of. Mostly I tell other people how to build things. That sounds boring, Maya laughed. I tell him that all the time. It is pretty boring, Jan, Ethan admitted. But it pays for dinosaur toys, so it's worth it. Lucas considered this. That's a good reason. They got the bridge working, barely. It swayed alarmingly when they tried to drive cars across it, but it held. Victoria emerged from her office looking stressed. Sorry, that took longer than expected. Everything okay? Ethan asked. Meeting Monday morning. One of our investors is getting nervous about quarterly projections. Again. She rubbed her temples. I love my job except for the parts where I have to pretend to care about quarterly projections. You don't care about quarterly projections? I care about building good products and treating employees well. Quarterly projections are just theater for people with too much money and not enough patience. You should tell them that. I have. They don't listen. She sat on the couch, looking exhausted in a way Ethan recognized, the bone-deep tired that came from holding too much responsibility for too long. When's the last time you took a day off? He asked. Define day off. A day where you don't check email or take calls or think about work at all. Victoria laughed. I don't think I've had one of those since Lucas was born. That's not sustainable. Probably not, but it's what I've got. Ethan sat beside her. The kids were absorbed in their bridge, arguing about whether they should try to make it open and close like a drawbridge. You don't have to do it alone anymore, he said quietly. Victoria looked at him. What do you mean? I mean, you've been handling everything by yourself for 6 years. Maybe you don't have to anymore. Ethan, you can't fix my job stress. No, but I can watch Lucas when you have early meetings. I can take both kids on Saturdays so you can sleep in. I can be someone you don't have to perform for. Her eyes got shiny. You do that? Yeah, I would. She leaned her head on his shoulder. They sat like that for a while, watching the kids play, not talking. It felt comfortable. Right. I'm scared, Victoria said eventually. Of what? Of depending on you, of getting used to having you around and then having you leave. I'm not leaving. You can't promise that. No. But I can promise I'm not planning to, that I'm going to try really hard to make this work. That's all anyone can promise, I guess. Pretty much. Dinner was spaghetti. Maya helped Victoria with the sauce while Lucas set the table with Ethan supervising. It was chaotic and loud, and exactly what Ethan hadn't known he'd been missing. After dinner, they all piled on the couch to watch a movie. Lucas fell asleep halfway through, curled against Victoria. Maya made it to the end but was drooping. We should head out, Ethan said quietly. Victoria looked down at her sleeping son. Yeah, probably. Ethan carried Maya to the car while Victoria walked them out. At the door, she caught his hand. Thank you, she said. For what? For staying, for not running, for making this feel possible. Same to you. See you next week? Actually, I was thinking maybe Wednesday? We could do dinner at my place. Nothing fancy, just the 4 of us. Victoria smiled. I'd like that. Fair warning, my apartment is tiny compared to your house. I don't care, and I'm a terrible cook. Even better, I'll bring takeout. Wednesday came faster than Ethan expected. He spent Tuesday evening cleaning his apartment with an intensity that bordered on manic. Maya watched him scrub the kitchen floor with confusion. It's just Victoria and Lucas, she said. They've seen messy before. I know, I just want it to be nice. You're being weird. Probably. When Victoria and Lucas arrived Wednesday night, they brought Chinese food and a bottle of wine. Lucas immediately wanted to see Maya's room, and the 2 kids disappeared. Your apartment is great, Victoria said, looking around. It's the size of your living room. It's cozy. It feels lived in. My place always feels like a showroom. They ate dinner at Ethan's small table, knees bumping underneath. The kids talked over each other about their days at school. Lucas had learned about volcanoes. Maya had won a spelling bee. After dinner, while the kids played, Victoria helped Ethan clean up. It was mundane, scraping plates, loading the dishwasher, but it felt significant somehow, like they were practicing for something bigger. Can I ask you something? Victoria said, drying a plate. Sure. When you think about the future, like a year from now, what do you see? Ethan rinsed a pot, considering. Honestly, I see this. More of this. You and Lucas being part of our routine, Maya and Lucas growing up together, us figuring out how to make it work. That's what I see too. Yeah? Yeah. She set down the plate. I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop, for this to feel complicated or forced, but it doesn't. It just feels right. Even when the kids have meltdowns, especially then, because we handle it together instead of me handling everything alone. Ethan turned off the water. His hands were still wet when he pulled her close. She came easily. fitting against him like she belonged there. "I love you," he said. The words were out before he could stop them. Victoria went still. "Sorry," he said quickly. I shouldn't have." "Stop." She looked up at him. "Say it again." "I love you." She kissed him, soft at first, then deeper. When they broke apart, she was smiling. "I love you too. I have for weeks. I just didn't know how to say it." "Well, now you have." "Now I have." From Maya's room came a crash, then laughter. They broke apart, listening. "We're fine," Maya called. "Lucas just knocked over my bookshelf." "Just the small one," Lucas added. Victoria shook her head. "Those two are going to give us matching heart attacks." "Probably." They finished cleaning up, then joined the kids in Maya's room. The bookshelf was fine, just tipped over, books scattered everywhere. The kids were reorganizing them by color, which made no sense but seemed to make them happy. "Can Lucas stay over sometime?" Maya asked. "Like a sleepover?" Victoria said. "Yeah, we could build a fort and stay up late." Lucas's eyes lit up. "Can we, Mom?" Victoria looked at Ethan. He shrugged. "I'm okay with it if you are." "Let's start with a few more dinners first," Victoria said. "Then we'll talk about sleepovers." "That's not a no," Lucas said to Maya. "That's basically a yes if we're patient," Maya agreed. The kids went back to organizing books. Ethan and Victoria sat on the floor watching them, shoulders touching. "They're really good together," Victoria said. "Yeah, they are." "Think they'll stay this close?" "I hope so." Around 8:30, Lucas started yawning. Victoria checked her watch and sighed. "School night. We should get going." Lucas protested but was clearly exhausted. He hugged Maya goodbye, made her promise they'd talk on the phone tomorrow, then trudged out to the car. At the door, Victoria lingered. "This was nice," she said. "It was." "Same time next week?" "Or sooner, if you want." "Sooner sounds good." She kissed him goodbye, casual and easy, like they'd been doing this for years. After they left, Ethan helped Maya get ready for bed. She brushed her teeth, put on pajamas, climbed under the covers with the triceratops Lucas had given her weeks ago. "Dad?" "Yeah?" "Are you and Victoria going to get married?" Ethan sat on the edge of her bed. "I don't know, maybe someday." "Why?" "Because if you do, Lucas would be my brother kind of, right? Stepbrother, technically. But yeah, kind of." Maya thought about this. "I think I'd like that." "Yeah?" "Yeah, he's annoying sometimes, but he's also funny, and he shares his Legos. Those are good qualities in a brother." "When you get married, can we get a dog?" Ethan laughed. "One thing at a time, kid." "That's not a no." "You're as bad as Lucas." She grinned. "I know." He kissed her forehead and turned off the light. At the door, she called out, "Dad?" "Yeah?" "I'm glad you met Victoria, even though it made things different." "Me too, honey. Me too." In his own room, Ethan lay in bed with his phone, texting Victoria. Maya asked when we're getting married. Lucas asked the same thing in the car. I told him to slow his roll. She also wants a dog. Of course she does. How do they go from meeting to wedding to dog in like 6 weeks? Because to them it's simple. They like each other. We like each other. Why wouldn't we all be together if only adults thought that way? Right? They texted for another hour, about nothing important, about everything, about the way their lives had gotten tangled together and how it felt both terrifying and inevitable. When they finally said goodnight, Ethan set his phone down and stared at the ceiling. He was in love with Victoria Hale. Completely, irrevocably in love with a woman who came with her own kid and her own complications and her own set of fears that mirrored his own. And somehow, that felt exactly right. The next few weeks blurred together in the best way. Dinners became routine. Victoria and Lucas started showing up at Ethan's apartment without planning it days in advance. Ethan had a drawer at Victoria's house now. The kids had sleepovers, first at Victoria's, then at Ethan's, then back and forth without either parent overthinking it. They weren't playing house anymore. They were just living. One Saturday afternoon, all 4 of them were at the park. Maya and Lucas were on the swings, competing to see who could go higher. Ethan pushed Lucas while Victoria pushed Maya. "You know what's weird?" Victoria said. What? This doesn't feel weird. It should feel weird, right? How fast everything happened. Probably, but it doesn't. No, it feels like this is how it was always supposed to be. Ethan looked at her, really looked. Hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, wearing jeans and a sweater that had a small stain from Lucas's breakfast. No makeup, no polish, just Victoria being herself. She caught him staring. What? Nothing, just, I'm really happy. Yeah? Yeah. She smiled. Me too. The kids demanded they race them. All four of them lined up at one end of the park, ready to sprint to the other side. Lucas counted down. 3, 2, 1, go. They took off running. The kids were faster, but Ethan and Victoria weren't far behind. Halfway across, Victoria stumbled. Ethan caught her arm, kept her from falling. They finished last, laughing and out of breath. Maya and Lucas had already claimed victory and moved on to planning their next game. Ethan and Victoria collapsed on a bench. I'm too old for this, Victoria gasped. You're 30. That's not old. Tell that to my knees. They sat catching their breath, watching the kids climb on the jungle gym. The afternoon sun was warm. Other families moved around them, parents pushing strollers, kids on bikes, dogs chasing balls. It was ordinary, completely, perfectly ordinary. And Ethan had never been more grateful for anything in his life. 3 months after that day at the park, Ethan found himself standing in Victoria's kitchen at 6 in the morning, making coffee for both of them, while she dealt with a crisis email from work. Lucas and Maya were still asleep upstairs. They'd had another sleepover, which had become so routine that Ethan kept spare clothes for Maya at Victoria's house now. This was his life now. Waking up in Victoria's bed, navigating her fancy coffee maker, listening to her type-angry responses to investors who didn't understand that some things mattered more than profit margins. It should have felt strange. Instead, it felt inevitable. They want me in New York next week, Victoria said, not looking up from her laptop. 3 days of meetings. Okay. I'd have to bring Lucas. Or... She paused. Could he stay with you? Ethan poured coffee into 2 mugs. Yeah, of course. You're sure? 3 days is a lot. Victoria, I've been basically living here for 2 months. I think I can handle watching Lucas for 3 days. She looked up then, and he caught something vulnerable in her expression. This is a big step. Bigger than me having a toothbrush here? Yes, bigger than that. This is me trusting you with my kid while I'm across the country. Ethan set down the coffee pot and crossed to where she sat. Do you trust me? Yes, that's what scares me. Why? Because I've never trusted anyone like this before. Not even his father. Especially not his father. He kissed the top of her head. I'm not going anywhere. You keep saying that because it keeps being true. She pulled him down into a kiss that tasted like coffee and morning breath and felt like home. When they broke apart, she was smiling. Okay, New York, 3 days. You've got Lucas. We'll be fine. Maya will love having him at our place. Your apartment is barely big enough for you and Maya. We'll make it work. They did make it work, though it required creativity and patience and several trips to the store for more food than Ethan had anticipated. Turned out feeding 2 kids instead of 1 was exponentially more complicated. The first night was rough. Lucas got homesick around bedtime and cried for his mother. Ethan sat with him in the dark, not sure what to say, until Maya crawled out of her bed and into Lucas's. It's okay, she told him. My dad's really good at being a dad. He'll take care of you. I want my mom. I know, but she'll be back soon, and until then, we can have fun. Tomorrow my dad said we could make pancakes for dinner. Pancakes for dinner? I know, it's weird, but it's also awesome. Lucas's tears slowed. Do you miss your mom? Your real mom? Maya was quiet for a moment. Ethan held his breath, wondering if he should intervene. Sometimes, Maya said finally, but mostly I just miss the idea of having one. Like, I see other kids with their moms and I wonder what that's like. But then I remember I have my dad, and he's pretty great, so maybe it's okay. Your dad is nice. He is. And my dad's girlfriend, your mom, she's nice too. Do you think they're going to get married? Probably. Adults are weird about that stuff, though. They take forever to decide things. Ethan backed away from the doorway quietly, letting them talk. He went to the kitchen and texted Victoria. Lucas was homesick, but Maya's handling it. They're talking in the dark like tiny philosophers. Is he okay now? I think so. Maya told him we're making pancakes for dinner tomorrow. You're making pancakes for dinner? Apparently I am now. You're really good at this, you know. At what? At being someone they can count on. Ethan stared at the text for a long moment, then typed, I learned from watching you. The second day was easier. Ethan took both kids to work with him for a few hours. He had to check on a site, and they were fascinated by the construction equipment. The foreman let them wear hard hats and pretend to direct traffic. They came home covered in dirt and completely happy. That night, they did make pancakes for dinner. Chocolate chip, because Lucas requested it, and Maya immediately agreed. They ate too many and felt sick afterward, but it was worth it. On the third day Victoria came home, Lucas heard her car in the driveway and bolted for the door, nearly knocking her over with the force of his hug. I missed you, he said into her jacket. I missed you too, baby. She looked up at Ethan over Lucas's head. How was it? Good. We survived. Just survived. Thrived. Definitely thrived. She laughed, and the sound filled something in Ethan's chest he hadn't realized was empty. That night, after the kids were asleep, both of them, in Maya's room, because Lucas refused to go home without finishing the Lego set they'd started, Victoria and Ethan sat on his couch drinking wine that was too expensive for his apartment. I have to tell you something, Victoria said. Ethan's stomach tightened. Okay. The meetings in New York, they went well, really well. They want to expand the company, open an East Coast office. That's great. They want me to run it. Oh. Which would mean relocating to New York for at least a year, maybe longer. The words hit him like a physical blow. Ethan set down his wine glass carefully. When? They want an answer by next month. I'd start in 3 months. And you're considering it? I have to consider it. It's an incredible opportunity, but it also means uprooting Lucas, leaving everything we've built here. Everything we've built, Ethan repeated. You mean this? Us? Victoria turned to face him fully. I'm not going. What? I'm turning it down. I already know. I just needed to tell you it was even an option. Victoria, you can't turn down a promotion because of me. I'm not turning it down because of you. I'm turning it down because of us. Because Lucas is happy here. Because I'm happy here. Because for the first time in my life, I have something that matters more than career advancement. But what if you regret it? What if I don't? What if this, right here, right now, is exactly where I'm supposed to be? Ethan didn't know what to say. Victoria reached for his hand. I spent 6 years building a life around work and Lucas, making every decision based on what was practical or ambitious or safe. And then I met you, and suddenly none of that mattered as much. You and Maya. You're my family now. I'm not giving that up for an office in Manhattan. You're sure? Completely. He pulled her close, and she came easily, fitting against him the way she always did. They sat like that for a long time, not talking, just being. I was terrified you were going to say yes, Ethan admitted. Were you going to come with me if I did? I don't know. Maybe. Probably. It would have been complicated. Everything about us has been complicated. True. But it's been worth it. Yeah, it has. A month later, on a Saturday that started like any other, Ethan woke up to find Victoria already awake beside him, watching him sleep. That's creepy, he mumbled. I'm appreciating you. Appreciate me less creepily. She laughed and kissed him. Get up, I want to show you something. They left the kids with David and his wife. Maya and Lucas had gotten close with their cousins, which meant David's house was now constant chaos when they all got together, and drove out of the city. Where are we going? Ethan asked. You'll see. They drove for 40 minutes until the buildings gave way to trees and the roads got narrower. Finally, Victoria pulled into a gravel driveway that led to a house. Not a mansion, not like her current place. Just a house. 2 stories, white with blue shutters, a porch that wrapped around the front. There was a yard, a big one, and in the distance, Ethan could see the river. "What is this?" he asked. "A possibility." Victoria got out of the car. "Come on." She had a key. She let them inside, and Ethan followed her through rooms that were empty but full of potential. Hardwood floors, big windows, a kitchen that opened into a dining room that opened into a living room. "It's for sale," Victoria said. "Has been for a month. I saw the listing and couldn't stop thinking about it. It's beautiful. It has 4 bedrooms. One for us, one for Maya, one for Lucas, one for, I don't know, guests, an office, whatever." Ethan turned to look at her. "Us?" "Yeah, us." She was nervous, he realized. Actually, nervous. "I know we haven't talked about living together officially, but we basically already do. And I thought maybe this could be ours. Not my house where you visit, not your apartment where I crash sometimes. Ours." He walked to the window. The view looked out over the backyard toward the river. He could see Maya and Lucas playing out there. Could see a dog, because Maya would definitely wear them down eventually. Could see years of Saturday mornings and Sunday dinners and all the ordinary moments that made up a life. "It's a lot of space," he said. "Too much?" "No, it's perfect, but I can't afford half of this. I'm not asking you to pay half. I'm asking you to live here, with me and Lucas. As a family." Victoria, I know what you're going to say, that it's not fair, that you need to contribute equally, that your pride won't let you just move into a house I'm buying. But Ethan, I don't care about fair. I care about us being together, really together. And if that means I buy the house and you contribute in other ways, then that's fine." "What other ways?" "You're already watching Lucas when I travel. You already help with school pickups. You fix things when they break. You make us laugh when we're taking everything too seriously. That's worth more than any mortgage payment." Ethan pressed his forehead against the cool glass. "This is a big step." "I know. Maya will freak out. In a good way. Lucas already knows. I told him yesterday. He asked if this means you're going to be his dad for real." "What did you say?" "I said, if you said yes to the house, then yeah, pretty much." Ethan turned around. Victoria was standing in the middle of the empty living room, looking vulnerable in a way he rarely saw. This woman who commanded boardrooms and managed millions of dollars was asking him to build a life with her, and she was scared he'd say no. "Yes," he said. "Yes?" "Yeah. Let's do it. Let's buy a house and move in together and figure out how to be a family." Her smile was brilliant. "Really? Really? Though I'm paying for something. I don't know what yet, but something. My pride needs it. You can pay for the furniture. Deal." She crossed the room and kissed him, and it felt like a promise, like everything they'd been building toward was finally clicking into place. They moved in 6 weeks later. The process was chaotic. Packing up 2 households, coordinating movers, arguing about what furniture to keep and what to donate. Maya and Lucas each got to design their own rooms, which led to spirited debates about color schemes and whether dinosaur wallpaper was too babyish for a 7-year-old. The first night in the new house, they ordered pizza because nobody had the energy to cook. They ate sitting on the floor of the living room, surrounded by boxes, paper plates on their laps. "This is weird," Maya said. "Good weird or bad weird?" Ethan asked. "Good weird, like we're all together now, for real." "We were together before," Lucas pointed out. "Yeah, but not like this. This is different. This is permanent." Lucas thought about this. "I like permanent." "Me too," Maya agreed. After dinner, they set up the kids' rooms first. Beds assembled, sheets on, nightlights plugged in. Maya's room faced the backyard. Lucas's faced the side yard where they'd already started planning a treehouse. When both kids were finally asleep, Ethan and Victoria stood in the hallway between their rooms. "We did it," Victoria said. "We did." "Are you freaking out?" "A little. You?" Terrified, but in a good way. They went downstairs and opened a bottle of champagne that Victoria's sister had given them as a housewarming gift. Sat on the back porch watching the river in the distance, the city lights barely visible beyond the trees. "Can I tell you something?" Ethan said. "Always. That night at the restaurant. When you told me about Lucas, I almost walked away. I know. You do? Yeah, I could see it on your face. You were calculating all the ways it could go wrong. I was. And I convinced myself it was too complicated, too risky, that I should protect myself and Maya from the inevitable disaster. What changed your mind? Maya, actually. She asked me if you made me happy, and I realized I'd spent so long avoiding happiness that I'd forgotten what it felt like to even want it. Victoria leaned her head on his shoulder. I'm glad you didn't walk away. Me too. Though for the record, that night you told me about Lucas, that wasn't when the real story started. No? No. The real story started when you called me the next day, when you decided to try even though you were terrified. That's when it became real. Ethan thought about that. About the phone call, the coffee shop, the first time the kids met. All the moments where he could have chosen safety over risk and didn't. I spent 3 years building walls, he said, after Rachel left. I convinced myself that Maya and I were enough, that wanting more was selfish or dangerous or both. And now? Now I know that walls don't protect you. They just keep you isolated. And isolated isn't the same as safe. Victoria turned to look at him. In the porch light, her eyes were dark and serious. Do you know what I learned? What? That control is an illusion. I spent 6 years trying to control every variable, make sure nothing could hurt me or Lucas. But you can't control people. You can only choose to trust them or not. And you chose to trust me. Best decision I ever made. They sat there until the champagne was gone and the night air turned cool. Inside, both kids were sleeping soundly in their new rooms. Tomorrow they'd start unpacking boxes, hanging pictures, turning this house into a home. But tonight, they just sat together, watching the river flow past in the darkness. 2 weeks later, Ethan came home from work to find Victoria in the kitchen with an expression he couldn't read. What's wrong? He asked immediately. Nothing's wrong. Sit down. He sat. His mind was already running through possibilities. Someone was sick. She'd changed her mind about the house. The company was having problems. Victoria sat across from him. I got a call today from Rachel. Ethan's brain stuttered to a halt. Rachel. My Rachel. Maya's mother, Rachel? Yeah, she wants to see Maya. Absolutely not. Ethan. No, she left. She walked away when Maya was 2 years old. She doesn't get to just show up now, and she says she's been sober for 18 months. She's been in therapy. She wants to make amends. I don't care what she wants. Victoria reached across the table, taking his hand. I'm not saying you have to let her. I'm just saying you need to think about it. Because eventually Maya's going to want answers. Real ones. Not just the story you've been telling her. The story I've been telling her is the truth. Rachel left because she didn't want to be a mother. And maybe that's still true, or maybe she's changed. You won't know unless you talk to her. Ethan pulled his hand back, stood up, paced to the window. Why did she call you? She said she tried calling you, but you blocked her number, so she found me through the company directory, asked me to pass along the message. How did she even know about you? She's been following your social media, apparently, saw pictures of us together. The idea of Rachel watching his life from a distance made his skin crawl. This is insane. Maybe, but it's also reality. She exists. She's Maya's biological mother, and at some point, Maya's going to want to know her. Maya's fine without her. Is she? Victoria's voice was gentle but firm, because I've heard her ask about her mom. Wonder why she left. Question whether it was her fault. I've told her it wasn't her fault. I know, but maybe hearing it from Rachel would mean more. Ethan leaned against the counter, suddenly exhausted. What if she hurts Maya again? Then we deal with it, together. But what if she doesn't? What if this is real and you deny Maya the chance to have a relationship with her mother because you're still angry? I'm not angry, Victoria raised an eyebrow. Okay, I'm angry, but I have a right to be. You do, absolutely. But this isn't about your rights. It's about what's best for Maya. He hated that she was right. Hated even more that he had to think about this at all. I need time, he said. Take all the time you need. Rachel gave me her number, said to call whenever you're ready. That night, after Maya was asleep, Ethan sat in the backyard staring at his phone. Victoria had given him Rachel's number on a piece of paper, which he'd immediately put in his wallet and tried to forget about. Now it was in his hand, the numbers practically burning through the paper. He could ignore it. Throw the paper away. Tell Victoria that Rachel had her chance and blew it. But Victoria was right. Maya deserved the truth. Deserved the option of knowing her mother, even if that mother had failed her spectacularly. He dialed before he could talk himself out of it. Rachel answered on the third ring. Hello? Her voice was the same. 3 years, and it was exactly the same. It's Ethan. Silence. Then, thank you for calling. I wasn't sure you would. I'm not sure I should be. Victoria said you want to see Maya. I do. I know I don't have the right to ask. I know I hurt you both. But I'm different now. I'm better. Are you? Yes. I've been working with a therapist. I'm 18 months sober. I have a job, an apartment. I'm building a life that doesn't fall apart every time things get hard. Good for you. I'm not asking for forgiveness, Ethan. I don't deserve that. But I'm asking for a chance to tell Maya I'm sorry, to let her know that leaving wasn't about her. It was about me not being ready to be a parent. She was 2 years old, Rachel. You had 2 years to figure that out. I know. And I'll regret that for the rest of my life. But I can't change the past. I can only try to do better now. But Ethan closed his eyes. If I let you see her, and that's a big if, it's on my terms. You don't get to show up and pretend to be Mother of the Year. You don't get to make promises you can't keep. You get supervised visits, limited time. And the second I think you're doing more harm than good, you're gone. I understand. And if you hurt her again, Rachel, I swear to... I won't. I promise I won't. Promises from Rachel meant nothing. But he also knew Maya deserved the chance to make up her own mind about her mother. I'll talk to her, he said finally. I'll explain that you want to see her. If she says yes, we'll set something up. If she says no, you respect that and don't push. Okay. Thank you, Ethan. Really. He hung up without saying goodbye. Inside, Victoria was waiting. How'd it go? As well as could be expected. I told her I'd talk to Maya. That's good. Is it? Because I feel like I'm about to blow up my daughter's life. You're giving her a choice. That's what good parents do. He sat heavily on the couch. Victoria sat beside him, taking his hand. What if she chooses Rachel, he asked quietly. What if Maya decides she wants to live with her mother and I lose her? That's not going to happen. You don't know that. Yes, I do, because you're her dad. You've been there every single day of her life. You've made every breakfast, survived every tantrum, celebrated every achievement. Rachel can't compete with that. She's her mother. Biology doesn't make you a parent. Showing up does. And you've shown up every day for 7 years. Ethan leaned his head back against the couch. I don't know how to have this conversation with her. You tell her the truth. You answer her questions honestly. And you trust that you've raised her well enough to handle it. The conversation with Maya happened the next afternoon. Ethan picked her up from school, took her for ice cream, her favorite bribe, and then dropped the bomb in the least traumatic way possible. Your mom called, he said. Maya's spoon stopped halfway to her mouth. My mom? Like, my actual mom? Yeah, your actual mom. Why? She wants to see you, to talk to you. Maya set down her spoon. She was quiet for a long moment, processing. Is she okay? She says she is. She says she's been getting help, that she wants to apologize for leaving. Does she want to be my mom again? I don't know. I think she wants to talk to you first, see how you feel about things. How do I feel about things? I don't know, honey. How do you feel? Maya pushed her ice cream around in the bowl. I used to think about her all the time. Wonder where she was. If she thought about me. But then Victoria started coming around and Lucas and I stopped thinking about her as much. That's okay. Is it? Yeah, it is. Do you want me to see her? Ethan chose his words carefully. I want you to do what feels right for you. If you want to see her, we'll set it up. If you don't, That's okay too. This is your choice. Maya thought about it while finishing her ice cream. Finally, she said, "Can I think about it?" "Of course." "And can Victoria be there? If I decide to see her?" "You want Victoria there?" "Yeah, she makes me feel safe. You both do." Something in Ethan's chest cracked open. "Yeah, Victoria can be there." Maya decided yes. She wanted to see Rachel, just once, she said, just to know. They set up the meeting for the following weekend. A park, neutral territory. Victoria and Ethan would be there, but would give them space to talk. The day of the meeting, Maya changed her outfit 3 times. Ethan had never seen her nervous like this. "What if she doesn't like me?" Maya asked. "She'll like you. You're impossible not to like." "What if I don't like her?" "Then you don't have to see her again." "What if I do like her? Does that mean you'll be sad?" Ethan knelt down to her level. "Maya, listen to me. Whatever happens today, whatever you feel, none of it changes how much I love you. You're my daughter. You'll always be my daughter. Nothing Rachel says or does can change that. Promise?" "Promise." At the park, Rachel was already waiting. She looked different, healthier maybe, more put together. She stood when she saw them approaching. "Hi," she said quietly. Maya hid partially behind Ethan's leg. "Hi. You've gotten so big. I'm 7 now. I know, I've missed so much." Victoria touched Ethan's arm. "Should we give them some space?" Ethan looked down at Maya. She nodded, just barely. They moved to a bench 20 feet away, close enough to intervene if needed, far enough to give privacy. Ethan watched Rachel and Maya sit on the grass, talking. He couldn't hear what they were saying, but he could see Maya's body language, tense at first, then gradually relaxing. "This is torture," he muttered. Victoria took his hand. "She's okay." "How do you know?" "Because look at her. She's handling this." They talked for maybe 30 minutes. At one point, Maya laughed at something Rachel said. At another point, Rachel was clearly crying. Finally, Maya stood and walked back to Ethan and Victoria. "Can we go now?" she asked. "Sure, you okay?" "Yeah, I'm okay." They said goodbye to Rachel. In the car, Maya was quiet until they were almost home. "She said she was sorry," Maya said finally. "That leaving was the worst thing she ever did, that she thinks about me every day." "How did that make you feel?" Victoria asked from the front seat. "Sad, but also kind of better. Like, I always thought it was my fault, that I did something wrong, but she said it wasn't about me, it was about her not being ready." "That's true," Ethan said. "It was never about you. I know that now. Do you want to see her again?" Maya thought about it. "Maybe sometimes, not a lot, but maybe sometimes." "Is that okay?" "Of course it's okay." "I told her about you, Maya said to Victoria. "About how you help with homework and take me shopping and make Dad smile. She said she's glad I have you." Victoria's voice was thick when she answered, "I'm glad I have you too." That night, after Maya was asleep, Ethan found Victoria in their bedroom, staring out the window. "You okay?" he asked. "I was just thinking about Rachel, about how hard it must be to know you made a mistake that big and have to live with it. She made her choice. I know, but still, she missed 7 years of Maya's life, 7 years she'll never get back." Ethan came to stand beside her. "Does it bother you that Maya wants to see her sometimes?" "No. Makes me respect Maya more, actually. She's big enough to give her mother a second chance even after being hurt. That takes courage. She learned that from you." "From us. We both chose the harder path, the one with more risk and more possibility." Ethan wrapped his arms around her from behind. They stood there, looking out at the yard that had become theirs, the life they'd built together piece by piece. "I love you," he said. "I love you too." "I'm glad you told me about Lucas that night." Victoria turned to face him. "Really? Really? If you hadn't, we'd still be playing it safe, still dancing around what we actually wanted." "Which was?" "This. All of this. The messy, complicated, beautiful reality of building a family." She kissed him, soft and slow. Best disaster I ever chose. Same. 6 months later, on a Saturday afternoon that felt like every other Saturday, except it wasn't, Ethan drove with Victoria to the same restaurant where they'd had their first date. The kids were with David for the night. It was just the two of them. They got the same table by the window, ordered the same wine, talked about work and the kids and the plumbing issue they were having in the upstairs bathroom. It was ordinary, perfect in its ordinariness. When dessert came, Victoria reached across the table and took his hand. "I have something to ask you," she said. "Okay. We've been doing this for almost a year now, living together, raising the kids together, building this life together. Best year of my life. Mine too, which is why I want to make it official." She pulled out a small box from her purse, opened it. Inside was a simple silver band. "Ethan Cole, will you marry me?" He stared at the ring, at her, at the future spreading out before them like a road they'd already started walking down. "You're proposing to me?" "Someone has to. You're too practical to do it yourself." He laughed despite the emotion suddenly thick in his throat. "What about the kids?" "They already know. Lucas helped me pick out the ring. Maya told me I'd better do it soon before you chickened out." "I wasn't going to chicken out." "Weren't you?" Maybe he was. Maybe he would have spent another year finding reasons to wait, to be sure, to protect everyone from the possibility of failure. But Victoria was right here, offering him everything he'd been too afraid to reach for. And he was done being afraid. "Yes," he said. "Yes? Yeah, I'll marry you." Her smile was brilliant. She slipped the ring onto his finger. It fit perfectly. And then she was out of her seat and kissing him across the table while other diners watched and probably judged, and he didn't care even a little bit. They got married 3 months later. Small ceremony, just family and close friends. Maya was the flower girl. Lucas was the ring bearer. They both took their jobs very seriously. Ethan's vows were simple. "You taught me that love isn't about being careful or protecting yourself from pain. It's about choosing someone every day, even when it's complicated. Especially when it's complicated. I choose you, today and every day after." Victoria's made him cry. "That night I told you about Lucas, I thought I was ending something before it began. Instead, it was the moment everything became real. Thank you for not running. Thank you for staying. Thank you for showing me that family isn't about perfection. It's about showing up." After the ceremony, at the reception, Ethan found himself standing by the window watching Maya and Lucas dance with their cousins. They were laughing, spinning in circles, completely unselfconscious. Victoria appeared beside him, slipping her hand into his. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. "About that night, at the restaurant, when you told me about Lucas. And I was so sure it was the end of something, that the complication of it would destroy whatever we'd started. But it didn't. No. It was just the beginning, the real beginning." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "I'm glad you didn't walk away." "Me too." They watched the kids play, watched their families mingle, watched the sun set through the windows, painting everything gold. And Ethan thought about all the times he'd chosen safety over risk, all the walls he'd built to protect himself, all the years he'd spent convinced that being alone was better than being vulnerable. He'd been wrong about all of it. Love wasn't safe. It was never going to be safe. It came with risk and complications and the possibility of failure. But it also came with Saturday mornings and shared coffee. With kids who called you dad even though biology said otherwise. With someone who saw all your flaws and chose you anyway. It came with moments like this, standing in a room full of people who mattered, holding the hand of someone who'd become home. That night, Victoria had told him about Lucas hadn't ruined anything. It had revealed everything. It had shown him that the best things in life don't come wrapped in simplicity. They come with history and baggage and complications. They require work and patience and the courage to keep choosing them even when things get hard. And they're worth it. Every single complicated, messy, beautiful moment of them. Lucas ran over, tugging on Victoria's dress. "Mom, Maya says we should teach everyone our bridge-building song." "You have a bridge-building song?" Victoria asked. "We made it up last week. It's very educational." "I'm sure it is." Lucas grabbed Ethan's hand too. "Come on, You have to help us perform it. I don't know the words. We'll teach you. It's easy. And just like that, Ethan found himself being pulled onto the dance floor by a 6-year-old who'd once asked if he was going to stay and had somehow, impossibly, become his son. Maya joined them, then Victoria, then more people, until half the wedding party was attempting to learn a song about structural engineering that made absolutely no sense but made everyone laugh. And Ethan looked around at these people, his wife, his daughter, his stepson, his brother, his friends, and realized this was it. This was the thing he'd been afraid of wanting. This was the life that required risk and faith and believing that sometimes the complicated choices were the right ones. This was worth everything. Later, when the party was winding down and the kids were half asleep on the couch, Victoria found him outside getting some air. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah. More than okay." "No regrets?" "Not even one." She moved into his arms and they swayed slightly even though there was no music. "I love you, husband," she said. "I love you too, wife." Above them, stars were beginning to appear in the darkening sky. Behind them, through the windows, they could see their kids sleeping peacefully. And Ethan thought about that night one more time. About standing on a wet sidewalk, watching Victoria drive away, convinced he was about to make the biggest mistake of his life. He'd been right to be scared, but he'd been wrong about what to do with that fear. Sometimes the thing that terrifies you most is exactly what you need to chase. Sometimes the complication is the point. Sometimes love arrives with responsibility, history, and a 6-year-old who asks about bridges. And sometimes, most times, those are the very things that make it worth choosing.